Tuesday, March 12. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke says the 2019-2020 budget is for everyone. His response to critics that the average person won't benefit from the $14 billion in tax cuts announced last Thursday. The government announced a raft of cuts. They're giving back $14 billion in taxes to the public without raising or imposing any new taxes, a first in 25 years. The minimum business tax and the asset tax for non-financial institutions has been abolished. An estimated 3,500 small businesses are also expected to benefit from an increase in the GCT threshold. There are also big reductions in the transfer taxes and ad valorem stamp duty. Speaking at a post-budget media conference Friday, Dr. Clarke said the benefits would pass to all.
This benefits everyone who has something to do, from the person who accesses microcredit, who are paying high fees. If they want to refinance those microcredit loans and there's a bill of sale over equipment that they have, right now there's an inhibition or a barrier to do so because of the transaction costs that they have to pay to the government of Jamaica. With the reforms that we are implementing, that will not exist anymore. The ability to phase out financial institutions who are not serving you well is enhanced because these transaction taxes go away. There are, the abolishment of the minimum business tax that affects small people, small businesses, some of who operate as a business in terms of a formal company, some of whom operate as sole traders or as individuals. The raising of GCT threshold, all of those are for the thousands and thousands of people who operate and have sale volumes below a particular level. We have reduced interest rates successively over the past 2 years, 8 times and 4 times in this year alone. And we are ensuring that the benefit of this reduction is passed on to all Jamaicans. And we're all affected by interest rates, whether we have a direct loan or not. It features into the prices of goods and so forth.
Dr. Clarke said the government had to address what he termed as a distortionary tax.
And so we have to be very strategic in the range of taxes that we choose to reduce. And strategically, we have chosen to make adjustments to distortionary taxes, i.e. taxes that distort business activity, investment activity, and economic activity, and distort activity across a range of sectors and for everybody, whether it's an individual for a car loan or a mortgage, or it's a micro business person, a medium-sized business person, or a large business person. What we addressed were things that needed to have been addressed a long time ago. The things that inhibit activity, that inhibit the growth that we want. So it's about being very strategic and going after the distortionary taxes first. And we would have signaled this some time ago, in our economic reform program.
He says everyone will benefit from the increased economic activity likely to be spurred by the new measures. 1 million visitors have been to Jamaica in the first 9 weeks of 2019. This from Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett. He said this has provided foreign exchange earnings of approximately $800 million. The industry is now at the peak of its growth, he says, and the beauty about us in tourism is that we make new peaks. He stated, saying, quote, because we are in a constant state of growth and evolution. This peak has allowed Jamaica to be the first Caribbean destination in 9 weeks to welcome 1 million visitors, end quote. The tourism minister was speaking at the opening of a Grand A View restaurant and event place in Montego Bay, St. James on Saturday. Bartlett said with the continued growth in the tourism industry, the ministry is seeking steps to further develop Jamaica's gastronomy network to ensure that ordinary Jamaicans benefit significantly from positive trends in the sector. The Peace Management Initiative, PMI, has serious questions regarding the upsurge in crime in St. James since the end of the state of emergency in the parish. Chairman of the PMI Western, Reverend Everton Jackson, says the current spate of crime and violence is unexpected given the significant reduction in murders under the state of emergency last year. He says it is a matter of serious concern. Reverend Jackson says criminals appear to have become bolder, and crime and violence in St. James has put a strain on the PMI's resources. However, he told RJR News that the group is resolved to continue working in the hope it can create significant dent in criminals and preventing reprisal killings. Chief Justice Brian SYKES is working to institute measures to further improve service delivery across the judicial system. Among these, he says, are steps to ensure the delivery of outstanding judgments in the Supreme Court by December 31, 2019. As of the year 2020, a judgment should be delivered within 90 days, and in exceptional cases, 180 days following the completion of the case. Justice SYKES says the Court of Appeal's case disposal rate should also increase consequent on the appointment of these additional judges in January, with another 3 later this year. He noted, for example, that in the issuance of a decree, absolute in divorce matters will be within 16 weeks once the documents are submitted error-free, while advising that by December 31, quote, there will be no outstanding divorces. Once all relevant documents are submitted error-free, the Supreme Court staff will ensure that these are settled within 12 weeks. In relation to matters of probate and the letters of administration intended to establish the validity of wills and dealing with the estates of persons who have died without leaving a will, Justice SYKES indicated that once all relevant documents are submitted error-free, the Supreme Court's staff will ensure that these are settled within 12 weeks. The Chief Justice made these comments in a national broadcast on Sunday. The Broadcasting Commission has urged the Holness administration to increase its oversight responsibility beyond free-to-air electronic media to policing social media platforms such as Facebook and YouTube, citing growing concerns about cyberbullying, pornography, and violent content. The Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica has called for the government to give it more powers of sanction in revamping of legislation governing local digital media landscape. In correspondence submitted to Information Minister Ruel Reid, BCJ Chairman Anthony Clayton and Executive Director Cordell Green want the BCJ's expanded oversight to halt the use of media for proliferation of hate speech, unethical advertising, disinformation, scamming, and terrorist recruitment. Politician and attorney at law Arthur Williams is now Jamaica's new High Commissioner designate to the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. He is expected to assume his duties in April 2019. Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade Minister Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith made the announcement on Monday afternoon. Williams, who recently concluded his assignment as Jamaica's representative to the Inter-American Development Bank, will succeed David Prendergast, whose tour of duty ended in January. The US dollar on Monday, March 11, ended trading at $126.09, down by 38 cents. That's according to the Bank of Jamaica's daily foreign exchange trading summary. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $93.66, down from $94.28, while the British pound sterling ended trading at $163.07, down from $166.21. In regional news, shareholder governments of the regional airline Liat met in Barbados on Monday to discuss the financial crisis facing Antigua-based carrier. The Prime Minister, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, says the urgent meeting had been mandated by Liat shareholders at a meeting over the weekend. The meeting was attended by the management, trade union management, and shareholders. The meeting comes as Caribbean countries are being asked to contribute $5.4 million in emergency funding needed to keep the airline in the sky. In the same time, relevant destinations have been given until March 15 to respond to the airline's revenue guarantee proposals. Dr. Gonsalves urged stakeholders to give support to the airline.
Good corporate governance demands that the decisions are taken in LIAT, even though you will give information to your colleagues and you have an obligation to, because of the regional nature of this service, to the OECS authority and also to CARICOM. But we have to observe good corporate governance. And I only talking after we have gone through that particular structure. One prime minister said that even Ralph is fed up with LIAT. I am not. I'm fed up with sovereign governments who failed and or refused to contribute to the funding of this vital regional service. I am fed up too with some other stakeholders who cling to legacies, whether at the workplace, in management or procurement. I helped to save LIAT and regional air transportation from Alan Stanford when others were in bed fully with him. So I'm not fed up with LIAT. But further significant changes in and of it are on the immediate horizon. There are three possible paths for LIAT: an orderly dissolution and bankruptcy, a disorderly dissolution and disruptive bankruptcy, or a sensible restructuring.
In a related story, Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister Gaston Brown says plans to restructure the airline must be implemented immediately. We have more in this report from ABS News.
A major platform of the meeting was a Caribbean Development Bank report that is recommending a major restructuring of the airline. Speaking earlier today, Prime Minister Brown, in no uncertain terms, declared the time has come. LIAT, he says, is at a crossroads, and the restructuring plan must be implemented as an absolute imperative. He indicated that the plan will impact all levels of the operations of LIAT, from management, the pilots, and the staff. The sacrifice they will have to undergo will be significant, Prime Minister Brown says. One of the areas, he said, was the reduction in remuneration for pilots and management. Shareholder governments will have a major role to play. Prime Minister Brown says the plan calls for shared benefits and shared burdens on their part. Just last month, the CDB expressed grave concern about the slow pace of the implementation of the restructuring plan. President Warren Smith, in a piece in Barbados Today, says he was disappointed that shareholder governments are yet to take on the recommendations. He stressed that airlift was critical to intra-regional travel, and there needs to be more urgency in addressing the airline's issues. Prime Minister Brown, meantime, was particularly pointed on his comments about the pilots, who have been consistent with their demands on the airline. He's urging that they too must realize that they would have to shoulder a major part of the burden if LIAT is to survive.
The state-owned Caribbean Airlines says it has cancelled all flights to Venezuela on Monday following an electricity blackout that has hit the South American country, where the opposition is seeking to force President Nicolas Maduro out of office. In a brief statement, the Caribbean Airlines said it had taken the decision, quote, due to no electricity or backup electricity supply at the Simon Bolivar International Airport, end quote. It said that its flights BW300 Trinidad to Venezuela and BW301 Venezuela to Trinidad for Monday were cancelled, and that, quote, the affected passengers will be accommodated on other service, end quote. The airlines gave no indication as to how long it would cancel its flights to the South American country. In sports, skipper Jason Holder says while West Indies' batting was a huge disappointment in the 2020 series, it could not overshadow the massive strides made by the Caribbean side during the overall tour against England. West Indies crumbled for record lows in the two final T20 internationals at the Warner Park Stadium to suffer comprehensive defeats and ultimately a 3-0 series whitewash.
I don't think it's a drop in intensity, to be fair. We just didn't bat well in these last two games. We must give England credit as well. They thought they bowled really well. They stuck to their plans. They executed well. We just didn't respond well. I felt the wicket was a little slowish up front. We just didn't adjust.
And that's the news on PBCJ. Thanks so much for watching.